Hello, everyone. Welcome to Beyond Belief. My name is Kjarlune Rae with my co-host Bonnie Worth. It's super quick. Just always remember to like and subscribe. I am a top clairvoyant, and Bonnie is a top medium, and together we deal with the universe and everything that it's about. So, Bon, first of all, you went away for a few days. You went and spent some time with your sisters, right? You went to
Yes,
Phoenix. Is that correct?
I
Yeah.
actually, yes, I was in Phoenix. I had opportunity to step away and go play for a while, which was so
Oh,
good.
I bet. I
Yeah,
bet.
so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I like to step away and play. I like to. You were in Phoenix, which is actually going to be our topic today. So while
Yeah.
you were in Phoenix, so before I share this, I'm going to give everybody some background information. I removed myself from my family, from my immediate blood family, years ago. So my sister, I think it was like 16 or 17 years ago, and my mom and dad, I think it was 10, 8 or 10. Anyway, I removed myself from my family. And my father died in September, which, just for all of you, when you wonder, when you've lost someone you love, um, how helpful seeing a medium would be. It is life changing, just so you guys know, because it gives you the opportunity to be able to have that connection when you feel so lost and alone. But anyway, lost my dad in September. So I've reconnected with my mom and my sister, as you know, Bonnie, because that's who's left in the family, my mom and my sister. And I've reconnected, and it's been wonderful, overwhelming, but wonderful. And I've learned lots of things, which is great. But you're in Arizona. I had to take, so my mom and my sister were in Mexico for this winter. My sister's still there for a couple more days. And Brian and I had to help my mom open the house at the lake. My mom and dad live on a lake spot, right? And so I had to do that while you were in Arizona. I'm thinking you had way more fun than me, just for the record.
Probably.
Because it's so this is the topic today, because I would love to hear your perspective too, or maybe hear what you go through. A lot of people don't understand. Most people don't understand what it's like to be a clairvoyant or a medium and try to exist in the real world, right? And family is a real thing, right? So
Mhm.
I it was so first I'm going to backtrack and say, it was wonderful to be able to help my mom, and the drive was nice, and it was nice to see the lake, and it was nice to feel connected to my dad. But I got to tell you, Bon, it is unbelievably hard to go into an environment. First of all, it is unbelievably hard when you are well known and well recognized and really successful and known to be intelligent, and the person that people come to for the advice and the support. You go from being that to you go into an environment where you are the broken one. You're the broken one, right? How you deal doesn't make any sense to anybody. How you communicate doesn't make any sense. I'll share this with you. So
Yeah. Yeah.
my mom and dad have been out at this lake spot for a long time, and there's a lot of people there that don't know me because I wasn't there for the last 10 years, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of people there that don't know me. Lots that do, but lots that don't. So when my dad died and I went to the funeral, there were all these new faces. Okay, so I'm just going to give you guys some background information. One of the new faces was a gentleman my age who my parents have loved and have treated him like he's a son. And I get that. I have adopted children. I understand.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how old you are once you get that connection. I mean, it's a soul connection, right? You can literally meet
Yeah.
somebody and feel like that should be your child, right?
Yes.
So I grasp it. I have no issues with that. And so at the funeral, my sister introduced our brother, and I, looked at him with a smile on my face. His name's Jason. I looked at him with a smile on my face and I said, I'd like to welcome you to the family, but I feel like you've been here longer than I have, so maybe it should be you welcoming me. And I just turned around and, right, like, everything was good. Anyway, he had, turned on the water and everything at my mom's lake spot because that's where they live, and had stopped by after we had gotten to my mom and dad's place. He stopped by to check on my mom. And I was very uncomfortable, which is also really weird. I don't know about you, but
Yeah.
I think it's why I spend so much time in my own environment, because I really, really struggle with feeling uncomfortable. Like, it creates this anxiety inside of me that is just, again, it's so opposite ends of the spectrum, queen bitch over here who can do and handle anything. And then, crazy person over here who can barely look at anybody in the eyes. Right. It's really frustrating that I own both of these personalities, but I do.
Yeah.
So he comes over and he's giving me, toot and tone, and he keeps watching my mom, and I let it go. Like, I understand you don't know me, right?
Yeah.
And anything you do know about me is stories that are probably not all that kind, right?
Yeah.
So he leaves, and it's about 45 minutes to an hour later, maybe an hour and a half. Brian goes to lay down, and my mom sits in the living room to talk to me, um, and we're talking about how uncomfortable I am, right? Because
Mhm.
I don't know how to regulate the difference between these personalities, and I've never been, that successful queen, if you will, with my family, right?
Yeah.
I've always been the little sister, the troublemaker, the broken one who nobody had any idea how to handle or raise, the one with way too high energy, and she spins out of control, and she can hardly control herself, and she doesn't think before she speaks, and blah, 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 right? So as we're talking, I'm explaining to my mom that I have a really hard time deciphering the difference because I don't, I don't, I, I'm sure everybody will understand this, but I don't register that I'm spinning out of control when they think I'm spinning out of control. Like, I
Right.
just feel like I'm being, right? Like, I'm just being me, right?
Yeah.
So my mom proceeds to explain to me that Jason sent her a message checking if she was okay after he left. And I was like, well, cool, you know. And then he said, well, it felt like you were hijacked. And I was like, well, my mom read it. I was like, hijacked. And I looked at her, I looked at her, I went, like you're being held prisoner? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, by me? And she's
Mhm.
like, yeah. I'm like, your daughter, your doctor is holding you hostage? What? Right? And so I let it go because it was fine. Um, but I was so overwhelmed. And everywhere I went and everything I did, I was so overwhelmed. We went for dinner and I'm trying to be this quiet, passive, because it's across the street from their lake spot. Everybody knows them. I'm trying to be the underdog over here. So sitting sort of silent. And thank God Brian wasn't, hips were killing him because of how much he helped mom, because we had to drive home that night. And it certainly wasn't fun because I drove home in a snowstorm. I don't like driving home in snow.
Mhm.
But I'm so thankful that we did, because I laid in bed, Bon, for like 4 hours and bawled.
Mhm. Mhm.
It makes me feel so broken.
Yeah.
So that's my topic. That's what if you're okay with it, what I'd love to talk about today, because I know if we're going through this, like if you and I go through this, then that means masses are going through it, because
Mhm.
we sort of go through a much sort of, I think, but I don't know because I've never been another person. I'm assuming, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong. People could go through this just as intensely as me, and I have no idea, because I just assume it's so intense because I'm a clairvoyant. It just could be because I'm a freaking basket case. I mean, it's possible,
Right.
right?
Right.
But it's so hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it is so
I'm just
hard.
I'm taking a moment here because I'm breathing, because I feel this on the deepest level, and I relate to it so
Do
keenly,
you?
because I too, if I could exist in my own little world and I'm
Yeah,
good, going out anywhere, the energy of everything is so, how we
oh,
navigate the world outside of like life is so
yeah.
incredibly different to other
Especially since
people.
2019. Yeah,
Especially since 20,
yeah,
right. So we navigate it completely different because we're
yeah,
navigating the energies of everything,
yeah.
and we're trying to stay centered and deal with and be present in our own lives. And
Yeah,
it's so
100%.
challenging and difficult. I struggled with that even in Phoenix. It's interesting how I go from being this person who is so extroverted and out there and talking and teaching and helping and this whole scope of things to going
Yeah.
into large groups where I'm recoiling and I'm playing down. I'm almost diminishing myself in some way, so not to be noticed or not to. But
Yeah.
it's not about not being noticed. It's in how I'm trying to deal with the energy. So that's the biggest. That's one of the things I want to say. Acknowledge is such an important part. But what gets me so emotional is that feeling like you don't fit in to your family that never goes away.
Yeah.
And I know there's the whole we're not meant to fit in because we're called to do this work at this other level, that we were never meant to fit in, and that's why it was as
Yeah.
challenging as what it was, so that we could self-realize and that we could be in the place of helping others to the degree that we help them.
Yep.
And so that's a part of it. But what I find, even with all of the work that I've done, and I've done a lot of work. I mean,
Yeah.
my
Me too.
traumas and things from the, like, it was deep and raw and ugly, and it was
Yeah.
impactful. And so even though I've done so much healing and so much work,
Yeah.
the moment that I go back and I'm with my family, I can't be with them for long periods of time. And don't get me wrong, I
No.
love them. I love them. I love them. I love them. And we have a shared trauma bond and experience from our
Mm-hmm.
childhood, and we all have our own stories and things with it.
Yep.
But there is also a triggering that goes on, and it's a triggering that almost knocks you or puts you back into some of the early dynamics within the family. And you
Yeah.
can't help but, as you said, being too much, not enough, being
Yeah.
whatever it is, the things are still there. And what makes it so challenging is in going into a place of being someone who's done a lot of work to now go and be with perhaps people who haven't done the same amount of work,
Yeah.
and you can't help but become overwhelmed and triggered and have
Yeah.
trouble being able to associate without disassociating from being there with your family. It's hard. It is hard.
Well, I also like, because it feels like, and one of the reasons I wanted to have this topic is because I think that so many people are going to relate, whether they're clairvoyant or medium or intuitive or
Absolutely.
empath, or because fitting in your family is a common denominator as far as our
Right.
dysfunction goes. I mean, we all put the
Right.
fun in dysfunctional, right? So, um, so I thought it would be really relatable, but it's like, it seems to me that family never seems to allow you, or you don't know how to force, because in anything else in my life I decide how people are going to view me and I
Right.
control that, right? And it's always with honesty and true, but
Yeah.
I don't have the feet, like I don't, I'm used to being the odd duck. It doesn't, I don't give a crap, right?
Right.
So I'm so used to being dominant in how I present myself. And in that environment, it feels like I can't get out of this pigeonhole
Hmm.
of being this pain in the ass,
Hmm.
lying, fearful, trauma based child.
Hmm.
And I haven't been her in a long time. And she was like that because she was a damn clairvoyant. I mean, my first
Right.
vision, I was 3 years old. The
Right.
first recognition my family have to a vision. And I don't begrudge anybody. Nobody knew what to do with me. I didn't know what it was. Nobody else knew what it was. I mean, there were periods of time in my childhood where the Catholics in my family were absolutely thought I was possessed by the devil. There were times when I thought I was possessed by the devil, being raised by as a Catholic,
Yep.
right? So
Yep.
of course you're going to lash out, and of course you're going to lie that people don't see what's really going on. And but
Yeah.
that person existed when I was a child.
Right.
Okay, I haven't been that person in 30 minimum,
Hmm.
30 years.
Yeah.
Right? For 30 years, I've been a patriarch. I've been a speaker and a teacher. I can go stand like you, right? I can go
Mhm.
stand in front of, I could walk into an auditorium of 50,000, 100,000 people, and I
Yep.
don't even shake.
Yep.
Let's do this,
Let's do
right?
it. Exactly. Yeah.
I pull in to a lake property
Yeah.
and I am a sniveling. child who feels like I have to question every word I say. Like it's
Mhm.
Bonnie. I got my hands underneath my legs and I'm holding my hands down with my legs to try to stop my vibration. And like it's like and everywhere else people are drawn. Like they seek me out. Not even because they know me. They just want to be near
Right.
me because I
Right.
vibrate like you, right? Like
Yes.
a lot of things people don't understand. We are very, I was having mom and I were talking because it's always been sort of beyond her pale, if you will, to be able to understand that how, and that's not a judgment call. It's tough for
Right.
everybody to understand because, you know, at one point I was a 500-pound woman and I walk into a bar and men start swarming and seeing if they can buy me drinks and everybody wants my attention and women are trying to carry on conversations with me and men are trying to take me home. And I've never ever been in a position that I've even had to be alone. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what it feels like. It's just
Yeah.
never, and I understand it's because my energy. I grasp all of that. I just have
Yeah.
this, I vibrate higher like you. I vibrate higher. And so it's a very
Yeah.
attractive thing. It's like coming across a sexy, confident person. Like
Right.
you just can't help yourself. Right. So I get all of that. But even when I was talking to my mom and I'm like, and she sees it and she's like, yeah, you're arresting, honey. And I'm like, no, here I'm a sniveling little mole who can't even, like, I'm
Yeah.
scared to pop my head out.
Yeah.
Right. Because I feel so unbelievably broken in
Mhm.
my family. I feel like the drama queen. People can't
Mhm.
handle my energy. I'm going to be judged and ridiculed no matter what I do. People are going to
Yeah.
question that I'm putting on an act because a person can't possibly be that high vibrating. I might burn them
Mhm.
out. I might, disrespect my mom accidentally in a conversation. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just like,
Mhm.
by the time I got home, like I just curled into a ball and bawled. Like I just
Yes.
couldn't.
Yes.
And
I
that's
do,
an afternoon.
right. And I get like, and it is, we automatically there is a dynamic within our family relationships. Now, again, we can look at this in terms of soul contract and the things karmically that we're here
Yeah,
to balance out and work through. But it's like the moment being someone who is so in a different vibration, it's like existing in a completely different vortex and then
yeah,
trying to fit into somewhere where we've
yeah,
never fit in, and
yeah,
it's amazing how quickly we fall back into those old feelings, the old
yeah.
patterns of being that person who they've always identified us as being,
See,
right?
and here's the thing I can't figure out, sweetheart. This is the thing I can't, or one of, there's many things I can't figure out when it has to do
Yeah.
with me and my family. But one of the things that I can't figure out is, are they keeping us in that hole, or are we keeping us in our hole? And I asked that question
Yeah.
because I've elected to be very open and communicative this round because
Yeah.
I'm not walking away, right? And
Yeah.
and if I were my family, it's very easy for me to walk away. I've done it more than once. So if I were my family, it'd be really tough to not believe that Carlin's going to pick up and check out again because it's what I
Right.
do, right? Like I just don't function well.
Yeah.
My functioning skills aren't healthy.
Yeah.
Survival skills are killer, but my
Yeah.
functioning skills aren't healthy. So I understand that. So I've made a vow that I will be very openly communicative. And so, I talked to my sister and I told her everything that it was feeling, and she was super great. Like it's not, and even when I've talked to my mom does, like, she says that she sees it, and I think she does. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, really, if anyone should see what your daughter really is, it should probably be your mom. Like, I can
Yeah.
honestly say I know exactly what my kids are. I see their potential even when they don't. Like,
Right.
right? See things they don't share.
Right.
Right. So I have to assume that my mom does too, because that's certainly not just because I'm the only mom on the planet that has that
Yeah.
sixth sense. Right. So I believe her. But if everybody knows and understands, and by everybody I mean my mom and my sister, know
Mhm.
and understand who I really am and sees me as this force of good, and sees my strengths and sees everything I can do, then why am I held back
Mhm.
when I'm around them? Which is why I'm asking the question. Like,
So
is it them holding me back or is it me?
I think it comes down to ourselves. We hold ourselves in that identity. We're somehow tied because of the previous experiences we've had, what's happened within those relationships. Everything that we go through in this moment, of course, and you know this, is based
Yeah.
on something past that was created. So we're
Hmm.
moving coming in, right? And so we're judging this moment based on our past and not necessarily who we are in the present and where and so part of that I always look at it as difficult as it is. Like, and again, don't get me wrong. Like I said, I love my family. We spend time
Yeah.
together. We enjoy it. But I do find I'm good for the first day, the second day, and then by the third day, I'm going, okay, holy, I can't operate in this anymore. And again, it's because there is, even though they're loving, gracious, kind people, it still is dysfunction within the relationship scope of it because of the family matters that are there. And so in that, I realize, and again, I'm the one who still creates that, but I
Yeah.
create it for the simple invitation for me to know my power, light, and authority, for me to know that what I'm worthy of, for me to remember in those
Yeah.
moments and in those dynamics that I am not that person anymore, that I've overcome. And I have to lots
Yeah.
of times have conversations with myself that say, Bonnie, you're not that little girl anymore. That's not your story. I
Yeah.
need to consciously pull myself out of that narrative because otherwise it sucks me under.
Do you ever, okay, this probably sounds like a crazy question, but do you ever feel like the failure in your family? Like, I struggle
I
so hard, sweetheart, because I do
Yes.
so well, right? I've
Yes.
been I have supported the biggest family in the family and done
Yeah.
it well in a huge home and pool and,
Right.
you know, beautiful vehicles and lots of options for the kids. And like, I have succeeded. I'm
Hmm.
very well recognized in my industry. I
Right.
have clients all over the world. Like, I'm globally known.
Yeah.
Yet, and it's not, my family have done well. They've been a middle class family. They've done well. You know, my sister's got a good pension. She worked with with the like a government position her whole life, high pressure one. And you know, my mom was an interior decorator, and my dad was a truck driver. And like, everybody did good, right? So I come from a middle high class family, a middle well off family.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, I've more than met that. I've superseded that on many
Hmm.
occasions, right?
Yeah.
Yet I go into that environment
Hmm.
and I feel like I'm the one on welfare
Hmm.
in the family.
Hmm. I don't think that for me, it's not a matter that I feel like a failure. I feel guilty about my success. So I go into the guilt energy of things when I'm around my family.
Um,
And so feeling guilty because of my success, because of what I've been able to build, how I'm known, the impact I'm having on people's lives, the number of people that I'm, working with globally, like what as you do,
yeah,
and looking at that, I feel guilty about my success. So what I find is I try to play it down. But there is in the undercurrent of I always call it the underbelly of our subconscious that runs within this not enoughness that we
yeah,
have by human default or design. We all have this not enoughness that no matter what I'm doing, no matter that something is not good enough, that something I'm not successful enough, I'm not happy enough, I'm not healthy enough, I'm not whatever. There's this I'm not enoughness, and
yeah.
that's the very thing that gets triggered when I'm put into my family dynamic. They're not looking at me as not being good enough, but I'm feeling guilty in
But
some
I'm
way.
looking at me as
I'm
not being
looking
good
at
enough.
good enough. And it's me. My
Mm,
not enoughness is inside of me.
yeah.
And they just happen to they just show it to me
See, and it's
really
so funny
clearly.
because I
Boom,
don't feel
boom,
not enough
boom, boom.
anywhere else.
Right.
There's no,
Exactly.
I think you've just described where my dilemma is,
Mhm.
because there is
No
nowhere
other way.
else
Right.
in my life
Yeah.
that I don't feel like enough.
Yeah.
Not even as a parent, because me and my kids have had thorough conversations
Mhm.
um, about what they get versus what they'll never get because of who I am, right?
Right.
Like they've all learned how to really be able to see how much they're loved and adored by what I can give. So I don't
Right.
even feel like I'm not enough there. I mean, they've all done a really good job. They're all kicking ass and taking names as adults, so I can't have failed that poorly, right?
Yeah.
So I don't, and I don't ever, um, hmm, hmm, hmm.
Mhm.
I don't like when I come to a conclusion when we're on a video.
Right? Not in the middle of this. We just need to give her a moment, you guys, and I'm just going to talk a little bit more here, just so that she can integrate this right now, just so that she's as she's processing and working through this. This is the biggest thing. I think this is where it doesn't matter who you are and what level of success or anything. You know, we've talked about this before. We deal with very real human stuff that we are so, you know, we have to understand that each and every person has a story. Everyone is, as you hear, you know, people say all the time, everyone's
Yeah,
struggling in their own way. And that we have these things that come up, that we need challenges we need to face. We need to take a look at the
yeah,
narratives, the storylines, what's going on inside of us. And we need to continue to do the work. We never get it done. There's always something else that needs to be understood, realized, accepted, loved, and healed on some level inside of us, right? And this is a big, and leave it honestly by divine design, that we are
yeah.
placed with people so that we can continue to evolve in those exact ways.
So I think I just figured it out. I think that's. I'm sorry. That was incorrect. I was informed.
Yep.
Like to take credit for that, but that was not
Yeah.
me. That was the other side. So apparently, I have been lying to myself
Mhm.
because I've been telling myself this whole for many years now that I don't ever suffer with not being enough out there.
Mhm.
And that's apparently that's not true. It's that I just don't show it. And
Mhm.
because I'm so vulnerable in my family, I show it in my family.
Right.
And that the issue is that I don't feel enough no matter what I do.
Mhm.
So, how can they show me that I am? Right? I don't give people on the outside world a chance to show me or not show me. So it's irrelevant. So I
Right.
can have my own
Right.
conversations in my head because I
Yeah.
don't give them that vulnerability. I'll share the vulnerability, but I don't give it to them.
Yep.
Right. It took me a long time to figure out I can be very, very vulnerable and not at risk of being
Yes.
hurt.
Oh,
Right. People don't
absolutely. Oh
understand
my
that because they
gosh.
avoid vulnerability like crazy because it makes them exposed. I can
Yes.
be very vulnerable without being exposed at all. So I'm super
Yes.
vulnerable in every part of my life, but the only place that I'm exposed
Yes.
is with my family.
Right. And again,
So
because
everything that I already
we
feel
can't
is magnified.
we can't run away from the fact that they are the
Yeah.
very people who know us better than anyone else, because we were born into it. We share DNA. We have an understanding that is deep, based on shared experiences,
We
but
expect.
in the personalities, the things that have
Yeah.
happened over the years. And so we get back with our family, we get, you know, triggered or whatever you want to say, but it's because we feel our most vulnerable. Because why?
Yeah.
We feel safest with them. And let me finish this. Even though they might have hurt us,
Yeah.
when we look at this from a higher source level is that these were the very people who loved us so much on when
Yeah.
we came into this lifetime. They said, we're going to come in and we'll play those roles and we'll create those challenges, and we're going
100%.
to bring this up for each other so that we can
Because that's
go
an
forward.
important thing for those that are listening, right?
Yes.
Like I am well aware that my upbringing, so unlike you, okay, unlike you, because
Yeah.
some of your trauma is from your upbringing.
Yes.
My trauma is not. Okay, so I mean, I'm sure I've got little things, no doubt, but I come from a very, surprisingly. in the generation, because our generation, right?
Yeah.
Surprisingly, because I come from two working parents and, a dad on the road all the time and gone for days and days and days, weeks and weeks and weeks. But surprisingly, I had a very natural, quite healthy childhood. I mean, I got to spend my summers with my grandparents and with my aunties and uncles and cousins, and I got to go spend time on a farm and at the lake. And because they would all help my parents raise us while they were working. So we got
Right.
to go away for the summer. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. I
Right.
wish it was still the way it was for every child, because that's what
Yes.
the ultimate grandparent should be, right? I'm so close to my grandfather who watches over me everywhere because of that. So
Yes.
I I only had one sibling. We lived a very comfortable lifestyle, at least from the time that I can remember. So, my parents were not, I didn't have an alcoholic as a parent. I didn't have, my mom was a bit of a dry alcoholic. So she had a bad temper because
Yeah.
she was raised by an alcoholic. But, considering really, really minor. And I think it's important to understand. So I come from what would be classed as a normally dysfunctional family. Okay.
Right.
My trauma stemmed from when I left, which was 16 years
Yes.
old. All of my traumas come from my choices of sabotaging my life. The reason that I'm sharing it that way is for people to understand, because I get that not everybody out there um, can feel safe and vulnerable with their
Right.
family. There are,
Right.
I do grasp, there are so many people that have a lot of trauma. And,
Yeah.
and I understand that you had trauma in your childhood too. And
Yeah.
so the people you're more connected to are the ones that were a part of the trauma too, that were faced through the trauma
Right.
too, right? So, and I do think that's important for people to understand. But I also think it's important to understand that if you're incapable of being vulnerable and feeling safe with your family, you will find people in your life that you do. That's something that we seek out. It's something that we need,
Yeah.
right? It's not something everybody gets from their family. It's not something
Right.
most people get from their
Right.
family. So, when I'm saying that, I want the viewers to understand
Mhm.
a part of my frustration and what I struggle with in my family is that I come from a reasonably sound one. So,
Right.
like, I understand why other people go through these issues, because I deal with people's traumatic childhoods all of the time. My traumatic childhood, outside of my family having no idea how to handle me because I was a clairvoyant, right?
Yeah.
It never stopped them loving me. Like, no matter how devil possessed they thought I was, I still got tucked into bed every night. I still got books read to me. I still
Yeah.
got to cuddle on the chair with my dad while he told me I was perfect. Like, I still got those things,
Right.
right? I got the love and support even if they had no idea what to do with me.
Yeah.
So but I think it's important that the audience understand that
Hmm.
we're aware that's not for everybody. Like,
It's
not everybody
not.
gets that background, right?
Exactly, exactly. And I think that's the biggest piece is that, when we look at those family dynamics, and
Yeah,
even as you said, perfectly dysfunctional is what it was, or as normal
yeah,
as dysfunction,
yeah,
but there are still differences and challenges within the relationships that can bring us to a point where we feel that not good enoughness, that
yeah,
unworthiness, that where we're just not quite getting it right in life, and somehow, and
yeah,
we begin, and it falters. It's part of our human condition. And so I think
yeah,
instead of going that this is something that I'm broken, or that this is something wrong with me, it's just looking at how do we alter that. And it becomes, again, having to talk to yourself and being able to say, no, that's actually not true. We have to call ourselves out on our bullshit
yeah.
too.
We do.
We
We
do.
do.
We have to stop it. We have,
Yep.
because we can stay in the
100%.
cycle of it, and we need to say, "No, you know
Mhm.
what? That's bullshit. That actually isn't the story. That is not truth, and I need to stop this right now." And that's that self-responsibility piece that
It
comes
is.
into it as well. We
Yep.
have to take responsibility for understanding that in some way we created this. We're a part of this experience, that
Yep.
this is only we're feeling this way because of something that's
Exactly.
going on inside of us that actually has
Yep.
nothing to do with anyone else. It doesn't. But it's so
Especially them. Especially
especially
them.
them,
And
especially, and that's
I'm going to
hard.
add to that. I'm going to add
Yeah,
to that for a second, because me, as soon as I figure out what the problem is, then I find a solution, right?
yep,
I'm that ultimate problem solver. So I
yep,
figured out that the problem in my scenario is that I don't feel worthy. I don't feel good enough in life.
mhm,
And so it's even more accentuated in my family, because
Yeah.
those are the ones that I'm open to
Be
feel
most
it
vulnerable
with,
with.
right?
Exactly.
Exactly. So for any of you that are out there, going through this, the sort of tool that you bring into the table, into the equation to start changing that is for me, I'm going to spend a few moments every day for the next couple of weeks, and I'm going to think about, because it's very easy for us to focus on what we're not versus what we are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just
Mm-hmm.
changing that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I talk to this with clients and patients and stuff all the time. You got to change the conversation, because it's
Mm-hmm.
really easy to think about what you're not. And so what I'm going to do is take a few minutes every day and focus on what I do bring to the family. What does make me a valued member of the family? And I mean, I can give you guys examples, because people might be sitting there going, what do you mean? Give me an example. Well, in my life, I am the only child in the family that had children, right? So I am the reason that obviously my mom and dad ultimately are the
Yeah.
reason,
Yeah.
but it's my decisions and choices that are going to continue my family line.
Right.
Right. My sister doesn't have children as much as she always wanted them. So I bring that to the table. I bring
Yeah.
the nieces and nephews and the grandchildren to the table. So that obviously is a value for what I bring to the table, as an
Mm-hmm.
example. Right. Um, I have the ability to easily communicate with my father, who's on the other side. So I bring a lot of that into our relationship with the three of us, because I share where he is and what he's doing at every moment
Right.
when I'm in communication with them and around them. So
Mm-hmm.
like stuff like that, right? What do you bring that's positive? What is the role that you can own? Because this
Yes.
is all about not being worthy, right? So you got to be worthy
Right.
of something. So what's the things that you bring that you can feel worth in?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's going to be my focus for the next 2 weeks, is thinking about
Absolutely.
that, so that when I'm around my family, and we're going to test this, because, we won't be talking next Sunday, because I'm going to be doing Easter dinner at the lake,
Right.
funny enough. So we'll get to test it, because I'm going to do
Yeah.
it all week. I'm going to double time it so I can do
Yes.
2 weeks worth in 1 week, and then we'll see what the reactions are
And
for
I think,
me.
and the other piece of it, if I could just invite you to, like, part
Yeah.
of, I really help, a lot of the work that I do with women is really getting out of the
Yeah.
stories, getting out of the narratives, being able to
Yeah.
pull themselves and cultivate the worthiness so that they can move forward. And I think
Yeah.
the other piece of it is we also need to love that part of ourselves that feels insecure, the part of ourself that is irrational. We need to love the part of ourselves that feels like they're broken. And we need to have compassion for ourselves as we're going
100%.
through the process, right? So we want to
100%.
cultivate that, and we want to look at what do we bring to the table, where to show ourselves that we do have value. And we also need to
Mm-hmm.
honor that little, I always call that little one. It's not necessarily a little
Yeah.
child or anything, but it's this little part of us
Yeah.
inside of ourselves that feels that insecurity and that feels that not enoughness.
Well, I will,
So I want to say
I
just 1 second. So one of the things
yeah.
I always, when I'm in crisis or things are happening with me and
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling reactive to anything going on, my favorite question to ask myself is, how can I love myself more in this moment?
Oh, I like that.
Okay?
I like that.
Just
How can I
it's
love
just how
myself
can I
more?
love
How can
myself
I
more in
take
this
care of
moment?
myself in
Yeah,
this?
exactly. How can I
I
love myself
love
right
that.
now? Yeah.
I love that. I will also say that, just for people to understand, because it's the therapist in me is going to come out now for a minute. What a lot of people don't actually realize about themselves is that um, your emotional age, so your emotions,
Yeah.
actually stop developing at whatever age you stop getting your emotional needs met are.
Yeah.
Now, for most people, that's a child.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's why, as therapists and stuff, we talk about the little toddler you have, the little teenager you have, that inner
Yes.
child that you have inside of you.
Yes.
That's why we talk like that,
Yeah.
because emotionally you are stuck at that age, right? And so for me, that time frame is between 3 and 7 when my visions were coming out, and just nobody,
Right.
who the hell
Nobody
knows what.
understood. Right.
It wasn't that they weren't giving me love, but they couldn't possibly tell me that everything was okay. Well, they were sitting there scared to death. I was being possessed by demons. Like,
Right.
you're right.
I had that too. I mean,
It came true, like it or not, right?
yeah, it was the work of the devil, and the devil had a hold of me, and I had people praying for my
Yeah.
soul because of these
Oh yeah.
things, and you can't
100%.
help but go
I still
into
do.
that in and of itself
Yeah.
is traumatic to have that, being placed on you, right?
We still do go through it if we allowed people out. I mean, people laugh and joke. When I first started in this industry, I couldn't let anyone know where I lived, and my name is spelt differently personally and professionally,
Yeah.
for numerology. But the advantage to that is nobody would ever know who I was, before the radio show and the TV stuff. And because people would burn crosses on my lawn, I would have to pack my family up and move. Like, it was,
Yeah.
I still remember the first time, because I put my kids in Catholic school, because they had a zero bullying tolerance,
Yes.
and I have a zero bullying tolerance. And so I put them in Catholic school. I could, because I was baptized. So they didn't have to be.
Yeah.
And I still remember the first time I was asked to participate and speak publicly at career day, at parents' career day. And I remember when I got the letter from the school, this is a separate note for everybody, just funny story, FYI. When I got the letter from the
I'm
school,
laughing
I
already.
actually called them immediately. Like, immediately. And I went, I think you guys made a mistake. Did you send this out to everybody? Because if you didn't, then you must have mistaken me for somebody. And the woman, guidance counselor I was talking, she starts laughing. She's like, no, I sent it to Kjarlune Rae. And I'm like Kjarlune Rae? And she's like, yeah. Am I not talking to Kjarlune Rae? Well, technically, I mean, right now you're talking to Kaylin's mom, but
Right.
kind of the same person, kind of. She's like, no, I'm asking Kjarlune Rae to come and do career day and talk about being a clairvoyant and a therapist. And I was like, shut the didn't know what to do with myself. And I did, and it was great. Everybody loved it. There were policemen, there were firemen, and even they were sitting there mesmerized while I was talking about being a clairvoyant. So
Yeah.
I felt so bad. I ended up being the longest one to speak, and then ended up speaking every year because they loved it so much. But people are still, you still see it on Facebook and stuff. I'm not religious because I'm clairvoyant. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in Jesus
Right.
because I'm a clairvoyant.
Right.
They're not necessarily because
they're not burning the stakes on the front grass anymore, but I mean, there are some people who feel that it's
yeah.
important to send the emails and to make the comments on social media in order to save us in some way,
Right?
right?
And I'm like,
Yes.
baby, I am so
Yeah.
closely connected to the man upstairs.
Right.
What he's thinking.
Right.
He may be the father you don't know, but he is
And I
without a
and I
doubt
always
the
just
brother
always say,
that you know.
I'm like, "Do you know
Right?
who my boss is?" Like, seriously.
Right? Yeah. So we're looking at this from this equation, okay? I'm the daughter that got to stay and grow up with him, and you're the daughter that got it, not you.
Yes.
The churchgoer is the daughter got adopted out to a loving family who tells you wonderful things about your biological father, but you don't actually. I know him.
Right.
Sit and chat. Like,
All
it's
the
like
time, exactly. I'm in
fucking
constant
tea time, people.
conversation.
I don't know if you know this. God has tea time, right? Like, so for me, of course, like you, right? You can tell I'm excited. Now you know why I feel so out of place with my family, because all we got to do is start talking. My hands are everywhere. No wonder I overwhelm them. But yeah, so I mean, really, there's a huge misconception. That's on the topic for another day, but huge misconception about our
Totally, yes.
spirituality and belief systems, right? Okay, so let's
Okay.
wrap this one up. I really want to thank you because that was
You're
super
welcome.
helpful, and you know how
So
my brain
good.
works. I need to process things through,
Totally,
and
I
I
love
figured
it.
I might as well process through in front of everybody else. If everybody
Why
else is
not?
going
Because
through it, they can
this is
process
real.
too.
This is real. This is real life stuff, and I think this
Yeah,
is important. We need to talk about this. We need to bring it to
I
the
agree.
table, and I really appreciate you in posing it and sharing this with
Love it.
everyone because it's been helpful for me too.
Thanks, gorgeous. Okay,
All
so
right.
everybody remember to
All right,
like,
Amy.
share, and subscribe. And we're going to
Over
talk to you guys
and over
again
again.
really soon.
All right.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.